Welcome to Knit a Spell.
Woohoo!
I have to tell you, I'm super excited today because we have a guest, and here is your hint. This is the artist way for witches. I am standing by that. Inspiring Creativity Through Magick by Astrea Taylor. And we have Astrea Taylor here today with us. Welcome, Astrea.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm magical maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
And the craft.
Astrea Taylor is a witch, author, two-time cover award winner for Modern Witchcraft with the Greek gods and air magic. She also wrote Intuitive Witchcraft. Her mission is to empower other witches and to encourage people to use intuition and creativity in their craft. Today, we're going to talk to Astrea about her magical background and her new book that I was just showing you, Inspiring Creativity Through Magick, published by our friends at Llewellyn. Oops. Well, see, it's creative because it's upside down.
That's right. You can read it in any direction, in fact.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here, Astrea. This is so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As soon as we saw this book come across our coming soon in the publishing queue, I was like, oh yes, this is perfect for our audience. Magical makers, which are our niche. This is what you need. It's so packed with inspiring information.
Thank you. I was driven to write this book. I think this book really wanted to be in the world. And I'd been working with spirits for a long time in my creativity. And I was like, oh, that's what I could write a book about. Okay. It's perfect. Perfect timing.
From your book, we learned a little bit about your witchy workings and your out-of-body experiences that happened to you as an early child. How did that influence your magical journey?
Those were really foundational in my relation to the world. And we were talking before the show. I have a moon in Aquarius, and I kind of just see things from outside the box perspective. But I mean, I guess there's a reason for that. And those early childhood experiences of being out of the body, it taught me a lot of things kind of about the world, that there is another world that overlaps with ours, that spirits are real. Telepathy with spirits is real. I was literally speaking with my mind, and I was getting responses. So I knew that my thoughts, my words were really important. My thoughts were my words, first of all. And then what I was putting out there, I was getting responses to that from the spirits. So I really learned that at an early age. And I learned that energy is real, and just having the experiences outside of our bodies is something that can happen. And so when I was younger, I had a very liberal, witchy single mom, and she just let me do whatever I want with religion and stuff. And for a while, I was looking into all the world's religions, and I was trying to find one that affirmed like my animistic way of thinking, and that kind of made sense of my out-of-body experiences. And there was nothing out there that was good for that, supporting for me as a young woman or a girl, except for paganism and witchcraft. So that's how I made sense of the world at a very young age.
So growing up, how did you manage to keep that magical attitude that so many get squelched out of them?
Yeah, I think about like as a kid, I saw fairies, or as a kid, I was really into my imagination. And then when you get older, it's like, oh, I don't see those anymore, or I don't have that anymore. Did you continue with that? Did you go through a period of time where you were like, nope, I'm mundane now, and then pick it up again? Or did you have it the whole time?
Well, I think I had it the whole time. My mom studied a little bit of witchcraft, and she actually had out-of-body experiences. So she knew what was happening, and she explained it to me. She was very gentle and kind about it. My sisters and I were kind of encouraged to, just be ourselves. And so I didn't ever doubt my experiences. I didn't share them with everyone. But when someone would be like, "You're weird," my mom taught me to say, "Thank you. Thank you."
Good job, Mom.
Like the Morticia kind of thing, like, thank you. but not judging myself went a long way. And that means that I didn't accept society's judgment of me as much either. And when I was older, I applied to and was accepted to Antioch College, where weird was the norm, and it was really fostered and encouraged. And, it was whatever you want to believe, whatever you want to be, that's great. As long as it's progressive. And so it was like a hotbed for that kind of spiritual cultural revolution. And I found a home. I found friends who were also into the same kinds of things, into magical things. We found our way into pagan gatherings at a young age. And it just worked out for me that way. And I know that's not everyone's path, but I think that it's becoming a more common path that people have right now these days, because when they're younger, more and more people who are our age have kids who, we're introducing them to this magical life, and we're not teaching them to deny it.
Right. Yeah, that's totally true. So this book is about creativity and inspiration. Is there a connection between your intuition and inspiration, do you think?
I think so. But I think intuition comes from within. I think that, it's that gut feeling, and it's what we use to check in to see, how do we really feel? How does this feel? How does this sit with us? And then inspiration, I believe, comes from outside of ourselves, and then we feel it on the inside, so we can feel the inspiration. And it feels a little bit different from intuition. Intuition, as I said, is in the gut. I feel inspiration mostly on my mind, like this beautiful soft caress. Sometimes I feel it like strike my heart, or like come up through my feet and into my legs, especially when I'm dancing. I feel it different ways depending on the artistic medium. When I was a potter, I would feel it in my hands and my heart, like on the spinning wheel. And that was really beautiful too. But I feel like, we just feel those things in different areas.
That's cool.
How do you personally define inspiration?
So I believe it's the magical energy that's given to artists and everyday people too, mostly artists though, and is given to us from creative spirits, whether that's, actually a spirit or a deity or an ancestor, anything like that. It's kind of like this overwhelming sensation that can kind of just be like this guiding light toward whatever creativity or art project. It can strike us like we can look at this color of an apple and just be like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the color I'm going to use for this painting. It's perfect. And or you can just hear this song and be swept away. That's how I wrote my second book. I was just swept away by a song, and I had to write this whole backstory because this character just came to life to me. And I feel like inspiration can strike us in the most uncommon of places, and especially those liminal moments, like when we're drifting off to sleep, when we're in the shower, when we're driving in the car. And it can just feel so powerful. And I feel like if we don't, take note of it or try to remember it, you can kind of float onto somebody else. And that's okay. We can't, take care of all the inspirational ideas that come to us. But I think, if you can record those as much as possible, definitely do, especially if you're into art, if you're seeking inspiration, that's the inspiration that's coming to you. That would be perfect for you. And that means that you can fulfill that artistic mission.
Yeah, that's really cool. You do a really good job in this book of footnoting references, which I love. When you were just speaking, I was thinking about Stephen King's book on writing. He talks about how sometimes he thinks his character is going to do one thing or the other, but then the character itself starts telling him what their path is. And I'm sure you've read his book because I see that you've quoted him in your book.
Yeah.
And you must love that book on writing, don't you?
I do. And I'm a
The
fiction
audiobook
author too. Yeah.
And he reads his own audiobook, which is really awesome because you hear him. I think about how his characters become kind of muses, if you will. And I think about how you also reference and credit Big Magic, the book Big Magic, which is written by, what's the name of the author again?
Liz Gilbert,
which I know you give big credit to. And I think your book is at that level. Your book is like Big Magic for witches also. So can you talk about that concept of the muse or the creativity comes to you, and if you don't use it, it might move to someone else?
Even the concept of magic and creativity, there weren't a lot of books in our community, floating around for a long time. I signed this contract in November of 2020, and I had to get through the Greek gods book first, but I was just driven. I was driven to like submit this proposal and to get it accepted, and I really wanted to do it. And since I published this book, just July of 2023. I mean, before that, there were actually a few other books about creativity and magic as well. There's like Art Witch by Molly Roberts. Laura Tempest Zakroff had one. There's another one about art in the occult. So this is a very hot topic. But what's funny is we're all interpreting it differently. Art magic is more about the arts and craftsness of it all. Laura's book is more about like sigils and that kind of energy, the art of the sigils and stuff like that. And the occult book is more about the visual aspects and like what they have in common. It's more of like a historical-ish book. They're all great books, but the last one's by S. Elizabeth. And but we're all saying different things, but this message is coming through to us. So I think we all got the same kind of zeitgeist moments, the spirit of the time. It was just time for everything to come through, and we all interpreted it in our own beautiful way.
Yeah,
I love it when that happens.
That's really cool. So is this, do you think, where the idea came from for this book?
Well, it really came from the fact that I was working with this creative spirit for so many books. Like this is my 6th book, my 4th with Llewellyn. And I have 2 self-published books before my Llewellyn journey. But my creative spirit showed up and helped me write and helped me finish my first book ever. Before that, I had been plodding along. I had several other books, short stories. They just never got finished. I couldn't find the way to finish them. It was like I was missing the key to finish them. And then all of a sudden, boom, my creative spirit showed up. And here we are. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, the characters did take a life of their own. They were like, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. This is what I'm going to do. They're very cocky characters. And I just stood back and was in awe of all of it. And, I came through the computer. It came through me, but a lot of the energy and inspiration and ideas came from the creative spirit. And, the life of the work told me things as well. The arts. It had a spirit, which I call the egregore in the book. And that told me what it wanted to be as well. That's where the idea from the book came from. Maybe 10 years ago was when this all started. So this has all of my information from working with my creative spirit for the past 10 years.
That gave me tingles in the introduction when you introduce us to your beloved creative spirit, as you say in the acknowledgement at the beginning, Crow.
Yes.
And you describe this spirit. I got tingles as I'm reading because it was so like, I've been there. I've been painting.
Mm-hmm.
And then 8 hours later, kind of awoke from the painting, which was there in front of me. And I didn't go to the bathroom and I didn't drink any water and I didn't eat anything. And it was 8 hours later. And I'm like, how is this possible? And here's this painting in front of me that I'm like, what happened? Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful. Although I do advocate for hydration.
Oh, yeah, of course. But for some reason, it was like the muse took over. And then I was like popped out of that experience and I was totally fine.
Yeah. And you don't feel drained either. Like
No, not at
if it
all.
was a negative spirit, with you would feel like, hangover, ritual hangover. But the creative spirit just uplifts you. And you might feel tired a little bit, just worn out a little bit from like cramping your hand like this for 8 hours painting. But
human problems.
That's natural. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had anything like that since, but I've also not committed to art in the same way. Oh, that's not true. Through palmistry, I guess I have had periods of palmistry where I've popped out of it and been like, okay, Jimmy needs to rest now.
One aspect I really enjoyed that you covered in the book was that if you try to look at it directly, or if you try too hard to reach and grasp it, it's like grabbing water.
We're chasing a cat.
Right. And I have felt like I have gotten that message over and over again. And so it gave me a lot of great validation to be like, okay, yes, that's not just me. It's really happening.
It's basically an occult spirit. It's hidden away. These other spirits, they're barely discernible to me, and I've seen a lot of spirits. So I think that, yeah, we have to accept that, they're here, and they may or may not make themselves seen to us, but that doesn't mean they're not here if we don't see them. We live in this world that really advocates for seeing is believing. You have to have a direct experience. You have to know what you're looking at, and you have to physically hear it, but we don't actually need all of that to trust what we hear and feel inside, and
Right.
see from the corners of our eyes, or maybe not even see it all.
Yeah.
We were just talking about how radio waves, just because we can't see them, doesn't mean they don't exist. We just didn't have the tool to tune into them. So
Right.
we just need to find the tool or hone the tools.
I also love this idea of, like, in that same idea, radio waves can be received. Like, if we
Mhm.
want to hear them, sure, they can be broadcast, but like, there's this gentle and amazing art of receiving. It wasn't about like, where are you? What are you doing? It was about allowing. And if you want that creative spirit to be there, there's a lot of allowing. And a lot of the rituals in the book really are about allowing. Does your space allow for creativity? Is it
Mhm.
organized? Is it clean? Is it distraction free? And does it allow for your muse, your creative spirit to be there? It
Mhm.
wasn't really said, I don't think, overtly, but I think that that's something that's undercurrent. I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I did not say that in the book, but I love that. And here's another radio metaphor for you: receiving, but also turning the dial and seeking out where we find the inspiration, our own brain waves, our own thoughts, our own trance states of mind. So what's the juicy spot for you to get to? I think for a lot of us, it's with the slower brain waves we calm down, but some people, like, the faster brain waves are more excitatory for them, and they can experience that moment of bliss with the dance. I know for knitting, I always slowed down. For writing, it's a little bit of a slowdown. I think we all have to find our own pace as to like how we can receive that energy the best for us in our art.
So fun.
Speaking of knitting, we're going to take a quick break, and we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about knitting. Yay!
And
other
more.
things. Yes, of course.
Magicians and all kinds of stuff. Stick around. We'll be right back. Katie, I got this email about a Knit with Color Magic workshop.
That's right. I now offer a brand new workshop on my website, 100% self-paced, all about learning how to knit using color magic. Because you already knit using colors, but why not be a little bit more aware of how they make you react, how you could use them to help other people express different emotions and feelings, and more importantly, the ability to be more aware of how colors affect you and how you can use them to help make your knitting projects even more impactful.
Even me, colorblind Jim. And I'm in there in the comments.
That's right. Jim has taken the course, and Jim has helped me actually with feedback in the bonus color blindness section. So why don't you go ahead and learn more by visiting lightfromlantern.com. And if you have any questions, you can always just drop me an email at hello@lightfromlantern.com. Hope to see you there. Hey, Jim, I feel like you've been doing a lot of readings lately.
This is the time of year when people get their palm read. It's that time of year when, time for my annual palm reading, time for me to understand what's going on with me. Divination really picks up. So time to book a reading.
And the second half of the year strong with a reading from Jim. Where do they go to find more information?
It's funny. You would go to my website,
Oh.
The Divine Hand. I know, amazing. thedivinehand.com. And right there on the front page is book a reading. So I hope you take this opportunity and check it out for yourself.
Welcome back, everybody. I was very curious about this relationship that you make in the book. The magician in tarot is basically an artist. How did this come to you?
I think about that a lot, the tarot cards a lot. I love tarot. I study it every day. I have cards that I choose multiple times. And I went through this phase where I was choosing the fool, the fool, the fool. every other day, every day, whatever. And then I went into the magician, and sometimes it does actually flow like that. But I was thinking about the transition between the fool and the magician. And the fool is just this openness, this state of awe, receptivity, exploring, trying new things, going off of the cliff and finding ourselves in this new place. I think that unfortunately, a lot of people do get stuck in the fool mode, though, like where they just keep trying new things. They don't latch on to anything. They can't figure out this new world that they find themselves in. And they just keep falling off cliffs, another cliff, and they just keep exploring. And that's great, especially, younger people do that a lot. I did that. And there's no judgment whatsoever. But the moment we decide to set an intention and to move forward with the power that resides within us, the moment we decide to work with the elements that are all around us and to use them in our magic to make our intention come true, that's the magician to me. And I see that, both in the magical practices that I do, but also in my art. When you decide on what your intention is for your art, you're more likely to actually finish your art and to accomplish that, as opposed to, I'm just going to see what happens. I'm just going to color finger paint. I love finger painting. I never have a mission with that. Totally different. I don't have a goal. It's just experiential. It's the fool for me. But if you want to really, see a project to completion and have some kind of like a goal actualized, then you need more of the magician energy in your creativity.
Otherwise, it's just going everywhere all at once and like spraying like an open hose.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
That's fun.
What I love
Interesting.
about this is on page 75, this thing about like people saying, I don't feel like I'm creative, or it's like you said, stuck in the fool. I was really nurtured as a creative mind by my parents. They always gave us outlets for creativity. And that isn't because I'm necessarily more or less creative than any other person, but it's because I was lucky enough to have parents that nurtured that. So you say here, like several years of feeling like I couldn't identify as an artist, your personal experience of like passive tendencies plaguing you. And then you realized you had to change, and that it took a lot of courage and course corrections, but you were determined to change how you identified. And this sort of mental shift of saying, you wish a benevolent stranger would see my artistic potential, swoop me up into another life where they'd give me all the training and resources I need. How many of you listening as an artist have had that fantasy? Totally me, right? And instead of waiting for someone else to be my hero, I decided to be the person I was looking for. I would see the artistic potential within myself. I would give myself everything I needed to create. It took a lot of courage and course corrections, but I was determined to try. My dreams were too important to give up on. Holy cow, that hit me so hard. And I was like, okay, yes, everyone who's out there who doesn't identify as an artist, who looks at someone else in comparison, stop it.
Yeah.
You are creative because you're human.
Yeah, it's exactly right. We all have the potential to be creative. In that chapter, I talk about the creative potential is like a book of matches. We can just let it stay in our little matchbox forever. We can use our creative potential to light other people's fires, or we can be brave enough to light our own fires, to light a fire for ourselves, to light a candle, a magical candle, maybe even for ourselves and our creative potential, and make it come to life. So a candle is the fire correspondence for the ritual, the creative ritual. And it's really about bringing to life, like having a mirror for you, expending this magical energy, doing this creation. And the candle is like keeping you accountable. It's like your friend. It's your mirror almost. We're both expending energy. Keep going, So I really believe that everyone does have the potential to be an artist. And like you said, I was one of those people who just admired other people's art so much. I didn't know what my own art would be. And now look at me. And I'm a fire dancer, a writer, a fiction writer as well. And I've done all kinds of art in my life, tried all kinds of things. And I just have to say there's so much joy in creation. I think there's a lot of fear that people feel, and they may feel like they're going to be judged, but I think most of all, I mean, everyone's in their own worlds. And if you do get judged, what's a big deal? It's not like it's the end of the world. I think that the benefits far outweigh any kind of fear, any kind of bad results that could happen.
Absolutely agree. Anything is creative, and yet that is an impossible concept to accept when you're in the full stage, right? Because you just don't know enough about how hard or how much work the person that you're looking at put into it to make it look so easy, which is a concept that we've talked about in the past before. And so it's so easy to just be like frustrated and fizzle out, or just like you said, be like, okay, well, I guess not this, maybe this one I can immediately be good at. Well, no, okay, not that. And so you never end up going into something where you're like, just try to spend a little more time on it. And I feel like this was such a good message about basically just on what you focus on expands.
Exactly. Yeah. That analogy of the fool can be like the blank page, the blank canvas, the idea that's like so good, but you haven't like really refined it. So that's taking it from the fool to the magician. And then just, setting that intention out there. If you don't have an intention with your magic and you're just like good things, how are you going to know if it's good? How are they going to know if it's good? How are they going to know what you want?
Right. Good is a very subjective concept.
They're like, I gave you McDonald's. You're like, I'm a vegetarian,
Right. And so in that vein, what have you found has really lit you up over your years of magic and making that into a craft?
Yeah, you said fire dancing and writing.
Mm-hmm.
And
What
in the
else?
book, you mentioned knitting. So I'm
I
excited to
do.
talk about that.
So I make scarves for myself and for trees, and my husband too.
Ooh.
I love to knit. It's so relaxing. When I was in grad school, it was one of my arts because it was something to do with my hands, and I could kind of just space out, listen to an audiobook or television. And it was a way of being creative where, I could keep track of it. I didn't really have to be on top of it too much, but I brought my favorite scarf that I ever made to the show. And I want to show you, it's a weird pattern. As you can see, it's like there's a solid color on one side and a fading, changing color on another side. And it's made with like yarn from all over the world. And in the middle, there's this beautiful zigzag, which has the sparkle eyelash fabric too. And I just kind of like took my needles and was working up and down, and I had 4 balls of yarn going the same time, and nobody taught me this. I just experimented and just got weird with it, and I love it. It's my favorite scarf.
What a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
So what was the intention behind that one in particular?
Well, I really like the thought of bringing all these different areas of the world together, but mostly it's about the visual texture. This is my favorite color, this raspberry red color. And on the other side, just how life changes. I can see how I use like a little bit of fat, like there was a color change here, but just like how life changes throughout. And then, this sparkle eyelash fabric with the dark underneath it, it's kind of bumpier. It's just kind of like the magic's woven throughout, the constancy and the change. And it's a beautiful length too, so it's just one of those things. It's not too much. Like if it was all eyelash, it would be like, whoa, what's up with that? It'd be very furry and sparkly. So yeah, it's the best of all worlds, in my opinion.
It looks like a painting that you're wearing. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Wrap it 3 times, and it's the Aquarius symbol for your moon.
Oh, love it. Yes.
People reach out to you a lot when you wear that one to get a little grasp of that eyelash.
No, I think they're intimidated by it. I don't know.
Okay,
it's
that's
very
fair.
homemade. It's very real. It's very honest. It's very like, non-conforming scarf. But
I think what you're saying is it's couture.
yeah, I think it's just elevated.
Very Rodarte.
Visual. Yeah.
It's one of a kind catwalk baby.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
One of the things that I think about knitting is that it's so magical and so ready for ritualizing. So when I think about ritualizing art, do you think that knitting is particularly prone to ritualizing?
Well, yeah, if you look back to ancient Greek beliefs, mythology, Circe was the goddess. She had a big weaving loom. She's the goddess of witchcraft and magic. Well, besides Hecate. But, she wove all the time. And whenever I knit, I go into this other state of mind. It's very calming. It's very relaxing. It's very like, I'm having all my great thoughts and great feelings. And it's just, I feel like home, my home frequency. But I really do feel like getting into a trance is key for making your art, especially if you're going to try to engage with the creative spirit and get that inspiration. We're all familiar. I would think that most of your listeners and watchers are familiar with the concept of having a magical ritual, going into that otherworldly state of mind. You feel different. And that, the more that you do ritual and that kind of stuff, it creates this pathway in your mind. You're like, this is how I get to the otherworldly space. Great. Did those things. Now I'm there. Well, you can hack that to be more creative. So having a ritual for your creativity makes you start along these same lines. And then you go into, instead of like this, magical workings, you kind of fall into your art mindset. And so I think that it's a really valuable way to kind of use that thought pattern to get to where you want to go. It's like following breadcrumbs, You're like, oh, here, I got to the magical place. Now I'm going to do my thing. I really advocate the trance state, using the magical ritual to get in the trance state, because I do feel like a magical ritual, it calls upon the elements. It gives us in touch with our bodies, our intentions, our larger goals, where we want to take them. And then, whether you cast a circle or not, I don't think that's as quite as important as acknowledging some of the elemental correspondences that are out there. So for my ritual, I like to use music, especially headphones, and I use incense or oil, and that just kind of takes my mind into this otherworldly space, and that's the element of air. I use a candle to mirror my creative energies as I'm creating. And then I have a vessel with some kind of a drink in there just to stay hydrated. But sometimes it actually replenishes me too. Like I really like to use hibiscus tea to make me feel more creative. And then the earth elements, if you want to use some kind of herb or crystal, those all come together for me in a very holistic kind of way to help me get into the otherworldly state. And you don't have to take a lot of time to do this. It takes me about 20 seconds besides making the tea, And so getting into that mind state, it just plugs me into that creative headspace, the ritualistic, like the trance otherworldly space. And it helps me start creating. Another thing that helps me a lot is playlists, musical playlists. And so like Spotify is amazing for that. And I will just like put it on. It lasts like an hour. When it's done, I will take a break or whatever. The music and all those little items and ingredients, they really help me dial in my own creative energy into a way that it helps me get into the project and just go deep really fast.
Mm-hmm.
This also sounds like if you can get a ritual to get yourself into doing the art, which I know many people struggle with, is the sit down to do. You're never going to get better if you're not even doing it for 1 minute a day, right? And so do you think setting up something like this helps someone be enticed to do it more often?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There's a something that's known as habit stacking. And when you start to do certain things in certain orders, the more you do them, you create those pathways in your brain. And then you just like are like, boom, it's like being on the highway as opposed to like traveling all the other roads that are taking you everywhere. And I also think that it's important that you have a workspace that's, as James mentioned earlier, clear of clutter. I like to cleanse it as well, like spiritually, with burning herbs or incense, whatever, and make sure that you're in the right conductive space. I also like to take a shower before I create. I take a shower before magic. I take a shower before I write sign books or anything like that. It's just, it puts me in like another state. It puts me over the edge so I can do what I have to do. You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting how, I mean, for a lot of our listeners who are really knitters that are just being exposed to the magical or being invited to bring some magic into their knitting, I think about how some of the mundane activities or some of the sort of like regular activities that we do can also be magical. And a shower can be magical when you think about, gosh, am I using like an herbal soap? Like Madame Pemita sells at her shop, Parlor of Wonders, you can get soap that has an intention in it, or you can anoint yourself with, just like you would use a perfume or a cologne. And you have beautiful references in the chapter on Earth about what type of oils and herbs stimulate those things. You can drink a tea. Those are things that you would normally have a cup of tea, perhaps, ready for you when you're knitting.
Definitely. And I think back to the kind of thought about getting into the place that relates to me to the earth environment, the earth element, I mean, and really showing up. There's this concept in the writers community called ass in chair. We abbreviate it AIC. We all have our own a way of having that inspiration, whether it's like needles in hand or yarn at the ready, or the wet clay is in place, and then getting in that posture. And from then on, I think it just starts to flow more effortlessly, but we have to find our physical body in the right physical place, in the right physical posture. And with the creative ritual, it all comes together. And that's where it's like, now it's time to do the work.
Yeah, inspiring.
For someone who's listening and is a knitter curious about magic, what would be one tip you might give them in terms of ritualizing your knitting practice?
So when I knit, I like to have the creative correspondences, a little candle, my tea going. And I like to have ambient music on. So and how magical is that? Just to have like a steaming cup of tea and a candle and your yarn and everything. But I really like the atmosphere. So sometimes I will go to YouTube and try to find like a witch's apothecary or a cozy witch cabin or something like that. A haunted library. I'll put that on, and that just gives me the right mindset for that kind of art. There's something about that. And, that is not going to be the most attractive for everybody. But there's something, if you can just find that right ambiance, I think that's what we're looking for. Of course, like we have to have the right lighting in the right places, the right, way to keep a hold of our yarn and not let the cats get into all of it. Right. And another thing I think is like going to the store and then just being like, I love this one. Okay, I'm going to get it. Okay, I love this one. I'm going to get it. Whatever you're tickled by at the store, the yarn store is great. I have a great yarn store and I just adore it. It's just like shelves and shelves and shelves from yarn all over the world. And I feel so lucky. Use what inspires you. I think, sometimes we get stuck in like, oh, I'm going to knit this baby sweater. I'm going to knit this like baby blanket. But make sure you're creating for yourself as well, because that's super valuable and needed too. So maybe every other one you need to be like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever. I don't know what this is going to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have fun. Yeah.
Does the world have enough light pink baby blankets?
Yes.
Yes. How about a really wonderful wild baby blanket that kid will love forever?
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
wild.
Let's get
Why
some
Try
neons
something
up in
new.
here. Yes.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you can unravel it.
Ooh,
Right.
yeah, there you go. Yes.
Speaking of color,
Mhm.
Katie has an amazing course online on the magic of color, really related to knitting. It's phenomenal. Everyone needs to check it out. How can color help us connect to rituals and with creative spirits? Astrea, you talk a little bit about color in your book, but I'm
Mhm.
curious about your relationship with color and magic and how
Mhm.
that connects with all of this.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I'm interested in Katie's take too, but I'll go first. I just think that colors are feelings for me. They're either like love and excitement, like this beautiful raspberry color It's like, woohoo. It's like my Aries color, I think.
Yeah.
Like the beautiful, calming, serene purple here, you see. Or you're like, blah, that color, I am very offended by it. So we all have feelings about colors. We have our favorites, we have our not so favorites, or the ones we don't like at all. And I think, working with those and tuning into how we really feel about them and how they make us feel can help us in our art. So you have to make a scarf for someone you don't like, you're getting the pea color, because I don't like that color. If I have to do it, if you want it in a raffle or something, this is what I'm giving to you. Or if it's good for them to calm down a little bit more, and that they're trying to work on being more calm, then like, oh, what colors do you associate with being calm? And they say like blues. So you knit them a beautiful blue soft scarf so they can feel comforted. There's magic in colors, I believe, for sure.
Yeah. Do they connect with a creative spirit? Like, do you think the muses have colors associated with them?
Probably. I would say they probably have like all kinds of things associated with them, including like astrological signs, notes of the scale, 4D way of thinking about things that, we can't really put our fingers on.
That's cool.
That's definitely
Good
my
point.
opinion.
Katie, what's your thought?
I totally agree. And that's basically what my workshop is all about, is just walking folks through all these different colors, 9 in particular, to help them connect with how it makes you feel. Because if you've never taken the time to really even ask yourself that question, then, it's always great to just go to the yarn store and be like, well, I got to make Jim a thing. I happen to know he likes purple, but I don't know. I've never written any notes and I have no opinions, so we'll just go with it. And so, if you just take a second, you're like, oh, wait, he likes purple, or I feel like he could, like you said, he could really use something calming. Maybe I'll use blue because I found that for me, blue is calming. So when I knit it, I'll be at peace. And so the piece will be wrapped in peace. And so just like you said, it's a course to learn how to transfer that energy according to how you see it in particular, whether you're colorblind or a tetrachromat or whatever else part of the spectrum out there. It's all about just you discovering the power of how you see it and react to it.
Yeah. When we get in touch with those emotions, like those intentions come out. Like you were saying, Katie, I'm going to put the calm energy of blue into here. It's going to be reinforced by the correspondence of the color blue. And so knitting with intention, any kind of art with intention, that's going to come through when you have a finished product.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned this in your book as well. And I totally agree. I have seen pieces that people have made where it has just struck me for the reason that it just was such an outpouring of whatever emotion was surrounding it. And it's palpable.
Yeah, like your scarf has that, which has me think about the egregore of the piece. Like the whole gestalt of it has then a consciousness, right? So would you define for everyone what an egregore is?
I define it as it's like the psychic impression or a thought entity, a spirit of your arts. There are a lot of different definitions, but for this book, that's the basic combined definition. And your art starts to come alive of itself, in and of itself as you're creating. And that is an entity, in my opinion. I've worked with my own books and how they present themselves to me. There's a meditation in there about meeting the egregore of your art. Yeah. And I'm always surprised by what comes through. And my creations are really different. Every single time I'm like, oh, you're like a griffin. Oh, you're like this other thing. I don't even know what you are, but you're beautiful. And sometimes my creation, the egregore of my creations, this spirit is very playful. It's very funny. It's very jovial. And sometimes it's kind of more shy and, a little bit like, I'm just going to like be like the queen of wands over here, So getting in touch with the spirit of our art can guide us in completing the art. And it can also tell us a lot about how it feels about itself, and acknowledging that it is its own entity. It's going to go out into the world as well and be received by other people. I think we can energize the egregore of our art and build that relationship with it. So we actually know what we're putting out there, and it's going to change. Other people are going to perceive it, and however people perceive it the most is going to be the predominant egregore. But we can still have our own egregore, our own ideas of how our art is. And that's beautiful. I think that that's really one of the goals of art, is sharing the spirit of the art with the world.
I love that. Egregores are so magical, so powerful. That's what got me at the end, was like, of course, the egregore of your art.
Yes.
Completely. This book published, there are many actual physical books, but the egregore of the writing and of the book has a consciousness, and it has something that's then out there in the world. Everyone's reading it and they're all like, oh my gosh, that has a consciousness that's shared. It's so cool. And that's true of your scarf has an egregore, or the baby blanket that you, listener, are right now knitting, or
Yes.
whatever project you're doing, the class that Katie has available that has an
Absolutely.
egregore.
A knitting
Yes.
pattern, anything.
Yeah, just psychologically, for it to have its character and its consciousness allows it to be in relationship with it. It's super magical.
Yeah. And it's a great magical practice too.
And we were talking with Stephanie again about how sometimes as a designer, it's almost like our job is to birth the idea. And then, like you said, now it's up to you, knitter, to take it and run with it. Like, how do me as a designer, how are you putting it together, the thing that I created, in a way that I never thought about?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have had that without the initial step. And so it's all magical. And I never want anyone to feel like just because someone, quote, knit it better or different than them, that's ever bad. It's all just extensions of the same thing. It's so beautiful.
I agree.
What do you hope is the big takeaway for inspiring creativity through magic?
Well, once again, I feel like everyone has the potential to make art, and I hope that they explore it, because it's a practice that really builds value into our lives. It saves us from bad emotions. It helps us work through things. It gives us a sense of accomplishment. And if you do want to make art, this is a great way to get into it. And you don't have to do everything that I suggest in the book, but there's a lot of ideas, and ideas about if you ever get blocked. There is a whole page and a half, I think, of ideas of like everything you can run through and how to work through those blocks, because that's a natural part of creating for most people as well. And then just reach into that magical part of creating. If you can go into the trance with your art, find yourself in the flow with the creative spirit, receiving inspiration, that's magical AF, and I think it's one of the best feelings that there is. And the fact that we don't need to like have another bunch of people to do it if we don't want to. We can do this by ourselves. We can find this magical energy that really feels amazing, and then create art that has the potential to move other people, whether that's music, a painting, a scarf, a tree scarf, a book, whatever. We all have this potential within us. And I really would like to see the world take that and light themselves aflame with it, metaphorically, of course.
So inspirational. This book has so many exercises. It's incredibly valuable. It's jam-packed with rituals, meditation,
Correspondences.
fill in the blank exercise. It is nonstop. You will absolutely love this book. Do not miss it.
This is the book for creative people.
Yep.
Because they want to keep creating. So it's really just the perfect size to gobble up with all the good bits that will really, I think, inspire folks to try out their art or get back into it, especially if they've been on a break, which also is so natural.
I'm so inspired by you, Astrea. Thank you so much. So how do people find you? You can find the book online at your favorite local retailer.
Yeah, please buy it locally from your favorite witch shop or Llewellyn. But all booksellers should be able to have it or order it. And then I have a webpage, astreataylor.com, where you could get a signed copy if you like, and my other books as well. I'm also on Instagram at Astrea Taylor, and I'm sporadically on Facebook and Threads. Are you all on Threads as well?
No, I found out it was not a knitting community and was like, oh, nope. Bye.
Right.
Sorry.
That would be yarns.
Yarns. There you go. Sure.
Yarns.
Have any upcoming events or classes that anyone needs to know about, or a newsletter?
Yeah, I'm doing the Columbus Witches Ball November 4th, and Earth Warrior Festival is in October right before that. And I don't know, my newsletter is the best way to keep up with me, or I have an events page on my webpage too.
Cultivate your email as the new feed that you want in social media. Do that with your email by subscribing to all your favorite people like Astrea Taylor, like me, James Devine, like Katie Rempe. All of us have awesome newsletters. And you can find all of these links in one awesome place, right, Katie?
That's correct. Right in our show notes, whether you're watching us, hopefully on YouTube, which, hey, take a second to subscribe, why don't you? Or listening to us, probably in the car, in which case, don't subscribe, please drive safely.
Oh, Astrea, I adore you.
Yes, thank you
so much.
so
for having
much.
me. You asked the best questions. I just love you all's podcast and your interviewing style. It's been such an honor to be on here. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Oh, thank you.
So much fun to be with you.
I'm sure we'll have you on in a couple of months when you have your 9th book dropping. No problem.
Yeah.
And another scarf.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yes, good.
We'll just have you on every week.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll fit in your schedule easily.
Oh, yeah, no problem. All right. Well, we'll see you next time on Knit a Spell. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for
listening.
If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knit a Spell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knit a Spell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.